أكبر الله أكبر حي على الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر.
What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to ask you all to turn to page 3 in our Moorish Holy Quran. It should be the header of chapter, or page 3 should be Know Thyself and Thy Father God Allah. Everybody say Islam when we get there. Islam. When we have our Sunday school sessions, if you will, or meetings, and when we have our Quran class or Quran studies, when I leave, of course, especially when I leave my Holy Day meetings, but when I also leave those other meetings, again, the Sunday school and the Quranic studies, me personally, I have a high level of zeal, and it's primarily because I have some more of an intimate setting with my members. I get a chance to hear the measures of our members. I get a chance to hear their thoughts and to I don't want to say gauge, but I get to observe rather, how far they have progressed in this movement. And I say that because, growth is important. It's almost, if anybody has played a sport or has been in any setting of camaraderie, brotherhood, sisterhood, and you begin to see the growth and progression of that family, it's a wonderful thing. It's as we say in the Moorish Science Temple of America, it expounds upon, and it's a great demonstrations on the possibilities of man. The reason that I mention that is because it's when I get a chance to converse and build, if you will, with my sister, with my brothers, I get to know myself. The beautiful thing about it is that, regardless if we agree on interpretations of, or certain interpretations of our literature, we leave with an understanding, and we remember the relationship, the bonding, the love, and unity. But when I meet with my family, I get a genuine example of building. Most of us that grew up in the 90s, or in the era of the conscious community, that was the key word is build. What are we building? Let's build. And to actually build is to literally assemble a construct. Whether it's in a metaphysical sense, or if it's in a literal sense, or a physical sense. You want to ultimately establish an understanding. And we want to keep that ideal in mind when we say that we want to build with our families, even outside of our particular school of thought. We want to always keep in mind that if we say that we are building, that we leave with a level of understanding that person or that group of people, that school of thought, if you will. We want to attempt to build a foundation. We want to attempt to establish a relationship that we can grow upon. Because again, knowing other schools of thoughts is knowing God, Father, God, Allah, knowing certain aspects of yourself. Knowing who you are, or knowing who we are, is the ultimate cusp of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the state of the Asiatic, the so-called black man and black woman, the African American man, African American woman that lives in America, and abroad, or lives in these shores and abroad, that we are definitely within a state of identity crisis. It fluctuates in defining who we are. And I can't say it enough, because I want to drive the proverbial hammer home, that when you allow other people to define who you are, that is a deterrent of your success. That is a contribution to a people's contribution to a people's arrested development. When you are caught up in the definition that was not established by your own, then you'll be subject to what other people or how a person may perceive you. They are able to dictate your well-being, what they think is good for you. And this, again, is one of the points of foundation within this Moorish divine and national movement, is defining who you are. To begin to define who we are, to begin to be the master of the house, like we talked about last Holy Day, you must first know thyself and thy Father God Allah. And it may sound, and it's very interesting that our prophet said, know thyself first. And so by no means does it come off as selfish. We have to remember that knowing thyself is knowing the Father God Allah, knowing what spirit embodies you. Most of us are not even familiar with our spirit. We think we know, but again, if the master is only good as the walls that it encompasses. So if your spirit is not well, how are you going to operate in the cares of the world? How will you be engaging with other parts of yourself? You will, in these Holy Day meetings, you're going to hear a lot of repetition, because our prophet says a man needs a pattern in his life. So the only way for us to truly understand our purpose is to continuously remind you of who you are. You are a spirit and a part of Allah. Therefore, you have value. And if you have value, then there's most likely, not even 9 times out of 10, then it's most likely that brother or sister that's sitting next to you in these groves, in these sacred groves, have value as well. Islam family? I want to continue on page 3. Know thyself and thy Father God Allah. The genealogy of Jesus, with 18 years of the events, life works, and teachings in India, Europe, and Africa. These events occurred before he was 30 years of age. These secret lessons are for all of those who love Jesus and desire to know about his life works and teachings. Islam? So, our Grand Governor, Sheik Rashid Ibn, he had a small leaflet, and the title of this leaflet, you can actually pick up that leaflet once we load the meeting. It's called Why Jesus? And the purpose of that leaflet, the purpose of that brochure, if you will, is to bring about a better understanding of why the Moorish Science Temple of America gives the demonstration of Jesus, in spite of what others may think of this concept of Jesus. Because when we think of Jesus, even with those that are fully aware of its origins, we cannot help but at least have a glimpse of the misconception of his features, right? And again, everything that comes with that misconception. So what our prophet was looking to do was to re-educate us on the life works of Jesus. He wanted us to know that Jesus looked like you and me. He wanted you to know that Jesus came from the same point of origin that you and I did. Mm-hmm. Not only from Father God Allah, but from the Holy Land of Mecca, from Canaan. Sorry. His bloodline stems from that. Okay? Because each and every other culture, each and every other group of people, even if they have a demonstration of Jesus, their demonstration of Jesus is relative to who they are. And that's the important thing about nationality, or having a shared idea and concept, is knowing that everything has to be relative to your well-being. That everything we do has to be relative to our progression, our success. Notice I say our and not your. Because once you know thyself, you have an idea of knowing of a clear conception of everyone. You have a clear conception on what you're called to do. Islam? But he goes on by saying that this is for those who love Jesus. During the time, the early development of the Moorish Science Temple of America, our ancestors, our great-grandmothers, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers, so on and so forth, we only knew Jesus. So it's only right, as the mastermind and Noble Drew Ali is to meet the people where they are. There's nothing wrong with meeting people where you are. That's a degree of Jesus for those who know. But it's also a degree of Jesus is to take that hand and extend and raise them people up from the point of origin, from the point of which you met them. So we as masterminds ourselves, we have to assure that we are doing our people a service, that we're giving them something to consider, to think of. Even if we introduce Noble Drew Ali, this Moorish Divine National Movement, this institution, even if we have to spoon feed it to them, we have to give it to them at their level of understanding. We don't want to bring it to them to where it may seem confusing or convoluted, because they have to decipher it. They have to decipher it, for one, at their own time, and they have to decipher it within their comprehension so they can grow. And everybody knows of Jesus. Raise your hand if you don't know about Jesus. Islam. Then he goes on by saying, dear readers, do not falsely use these lessons. They are for the good, peace, and happiness for all those that love Jesus. Do not falsely use these lessons. The Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America is a self-help book. I'm going to say that again. The Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America is a self-help book. He starts off by telling you what you're going to learn in this pamphlet, part itself, in this pamphlet. He lets us know, he begins to plumb the line and say, this is the purpose of this pamphlet. Throughout this pamphlet, you will know yourself. You will know about your higher self, and you will definitely know about your lower self. You will know about the things that plague us, and the things that we need to do as an individual, not just as an individual, as a people, to raise our thoughts, to raise our conscience, to raise our spirit, to develop an understanding of self-preservation and self-worth. So with that being said, he gives us a caveat. He says, dear readers, do not falsely use these lessons. We have a chapter in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America called The Insufficiency of Knowledge. And it gives a measure on how you have certain people that take the information that they know and they misuse it. They use it for war. They use it for their own gain. They use it to deplete lives and people's well-being. The knowledge that you receive is not just for the benefit of yourself, but it's for the benefit of the people that are in your circle and beyond. And if you're not using that knowledge for the benefit of the people that are in your circle and beyond, then that is the insufficiency of knowledge. You're not wise at all. You're very much so ignorant. Islam? Goes on by saying, dear mothers, teach these lessons to your little ones that they may learn to love instead of hate. So that's the first time. Well, make sure I want to make sure I get my quotes right. So yeah, that is the beginning, if you will, of the concept of learning to love instead of hate. And we may have all heard this idea of learning to love instead of hate, but I want to remind you, because again, a man needs a pattern in his life. So when we talk about love and hate, matter of fact, when we talk about this idea of the 5 principles that are known to man, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, we must know that these are divine principles because they come from Allah. Why do we know this? Or how do we know this, Sheik? We know this by our more Shamaric prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Therefore, these are divine principles. But when I talk about love, I'm talking about not the things that you do to show that you love someone, because those are the actions, but those are not the love itself. Your love is a mind state. It's where you are psychologically. We often talk about the idea of European psychology and how we are all in the process of removing that yoke. Because part of that removing that yoke is learning to love instead of hate. So when we love someone, that is an idea, a concept in our mind that says, how am I going to improve the interest of that person that I love? I talked about, I had a conversation with some of my coworkers, and we got into a discussion about relationships. And I mentioned to my coworkers, I said the relationship, everyone should be coming into the relationship selflessly and not selfishly. You should be coming into your relationship thinking with anyone, whether it be friends, a significant other, what have you, thinking, what is it that I can do to benefit that person's well-being? And that goes for the same. That goes verbatim for the same person, for that person that you're interested in. If you're approaching or engaging in a relationship and the only thing that you're thinking about is what is it that this person can do for me, then that relationship is already doomed for failure. But when you love that person, that mindset is, what is it that I can do to assure that you will succeed? Because if you succeed, that means that I will succeed. But when you hate someone, you have to understand that you're hating yourself. Because why is it that you're hating the very person that you dislike? And that's a strong measure, that word hate. That means that you don't want to have anything to do with that person. You're removing yourself from feeling. You're removing yourself from emotion. On the contrary, you're removing yourself from a rational thought. Because more than likely, the reason that you quote unquote hate that person is because you see something in them that you see in yourself that you do not want to deal with. Therefore, you don't want to deal with knowing who you are. Right? So the Prophet, our Prophet, alayhi salam, Noble Drew Ali, said, dear mothers, teach these lessons to your little ones that they may learn to love instead of hate. That word learn, teach. Notice the Prophet did say nothing about tell. Because we can tell somebody all day that they're not Negro, black, and color. Learn to love instead of hate. Know thyself and thy Father God Allah. I just told you that right now. Now what? But when I teach you, that means that I have to engage with you. I have to sit down and establish a dialogue with you, and dialogue with you. You know, I have to receive and confer reciprocal helps. I have to receive and confer thoughts. So that means that I have to also empty my cup, because just because I may be coming in the capacity of a teacher doesn't mean I can't learn from my students. Our prophet, again, throughout this wonderful and magnificent pamphlet, he gives us the degree of master and servant. And interestingly enough, he's not talking about a linear concept of master and servant. These things fluctuate. So just because you're the master doesn't mean that you can't switch over and be the servant. Just because you're the magistrate don't mean you can't be the subject.
Islam.
All right. But he gives this to the mothers, because the mothers are the very first thing that that the child sees when they're born. And if not, that there's something wrong. So it's the responsibility and the duties of the mother to teach these lessons to the children, so they may learn to love instead of hate. So they may develop the idea of love for themselves, love for their families, and love for the people, again, that's in their circle, in their reality. You have to have love. If you don't have love for even yourself, then how are you going to love what's out there? If you don't know yourself, you can't love yourself. Dear fathers, by these lessons you can set your house in order, and your children will learn to love instead of hate. When we talk about this house, we can be talking about the physical house, of course. But I know my family we like to do the esoteric, we like to do the metaphysical. But we also talking about this house right here. We're talking about the heart. We're talking about the mind. Because we got tools. We got tools in the workshop of the mind to get your house in order. We got tools that circumvent your passions. We have those that'll make your conduct square. We have tools that will measure your morality. We have tools that will hammer the truth. We have tools that will cut and chop off all the knotty and useless parts. And it goes on. So these are the tools in the workshop of the mind to build, not only build character, but that's part of your house too. You got to make sure that your house is in order before your house is in order. Islam? I'm going to actually, for the sake of time, stop right there. And when you get a chance, I want you to read further. And inshallah, we'll be able to discuss it in further. But I want you to get into the idea of learning to know yourself. Learning to love yourself. Learning to love others. Genuinely love others. I challenge you to, if there's a person that you would consider to hate, think to yourself, why is it that you hate that person? If that person is doing something to you, then I challenge you to confront them and say, why are you doing this to me? And you will be very surprised at the results that you get when you can sit down and speak in an intelligent tone and you reason together. And even if you sit down and you're able to reason with that person and that person is not ready yet to give up that ghost, then mashallah, you have still learned a part of who you are. And you still are obligated to love that person. When I say love, I mean to make sure that that person succeeds. Everyone should be winning. Every one of our people should be winning. If every one of our people is not winning, then you're not winning. Islam? So that is my first thought of the day. or of the evening, know thyself and thy Father God Allah. Happiness. I want to write some words on the board. Because I want us to contemplate these words as I speak. This right here, quiet here. Islam, I want everybody to say these words. What's this word right here?
Salvation, Allah, unity, kindness, justice.
Islam. I'm going to begin with some words from our prophet Buddha, alayhi salam, and what he said in regards to happiness. Our noble prophet stated that happiness is a choice, not a result. Nothing will make you happy until you choose to be happy. No person will make you happy unless you decide to be happy. Your happiness will not come to you, it can only come from you. Islam? What I would also like to read in part is a brief comparison of happiness from the perspective of Aristotle and Confucius. Aristotle defines the highest good for humankind in the terms of happiness. He states that the nature of happiness includes intellectual activity, virtual activity, and friendship. And certain external goods are needed for happiness. A good life involves consistently participating in activities that make a person good. Intellectual activity, virtuous activity, and pursuing friendships. Though Confucius does not make the same exact approach as Aristotle. Fancy that. He is concerned with the good for humankind. Seeking the good of humankind involves consistently and habitually performing acts that develop good character. Such acts include performing virtuous acts, acting with ritual propriety, in other words, keeping in line with the customs of your ancestors. And this is interesting. I want to mention this for a good reason. Living according to the Tao, or the way, and doing what is appropriate. Why do I mention the Tao? Because the Tao, contrary to popular belief, was one of their many synonyms for Allah. All right, their expression of how to be one with Allah and all of His creations. The flow. All right. What is important to Confucius in the manner or regarding happiness is not just the happiness of the individual, but the happiness of others. Right? Remember earlier I said that I will be repeating things often, especially in this temple. One of the things that I often repeat is this word unity. Everybody say unity.
Unity.
All right. What does it mean to unite? I know it's a rhetorical question, but I want to liven up the groves. Start picking on people. What does it mean To unite.
To come together.
Brother, to come together. Brother man.
Islam. When you look at the word unity and you look at uni and then you look at tie, uni means one and tie means to bind. One bind or one tie.
Islam. Sister. Islam. Islam. Our prophet stated in our holy pamphlet that no man lives unto himself. He is bound by cords to every living thing. Right? I'm going to read a few passages from this pamphlet. As I mentioned before earlier, this is a self-help book. The self-help pamphlet. So it would behoove you to ponder these words and consider, your condition, your situation, and how it could either improve or you can raise the level of consciousness. Islam? I want to start from the ground. I want to start from the lower self. I'm actually going to read chapter 26, Holy Instructions of Unity. I'm going to read through it pretty quickly. I'm going to touch on a couple of things. So if you would like to follow, just say Islam when you're on chapter 26. All right. Holy Instructions of Unity. Instruction 1. The gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah. And he appointed to everyone his portion in what measure seemeth good unto himself. Hath he endowed thee with wisdom? Hath he enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth? Communicated to the ignorant for their instruction. Communicated to the wise for thine own improvement. Islam? True wisdom is less presuming than folly. The wise man doubteth often and changeth his mind. The fool is obstinate and doubteth not. He knoweth all things but his own ignorance.
Islam.
Further in this pamphlet, we talk about, there's a chapter on inconstancy. And what our prophet gives us in this demonstration of unity, he gives us a demonstration of the higher self, of the cons, and he gives us a demonstration of the lower self, and then of the higher self. And what the pattern that we see in just the few words or the few instructions that I've given, he cited to us the primary foundation of unity. The gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah, and he appointed to everyone his portion. The Prophet says in the Quran of Mecca that I'm paraphrasing, I have separated you into nations and tribes so that you may learn from one another. So that means each and every one of us has a portion of knowledge that has been bestowed upon us by Allah. So no one man knows everything. We have to unite with each other in order to learn from each other. What did I talk about earlier in this meeting? Know thyself and thy Father God Allah. You can only know yourself if you if you engage with others. Right? But then he goes on, he says, okay, now that I've told you what the primary focus is, let me tell you what it's not. He talked about endowing us with wisdom and enlightening our mind, contemplating our frame, knowing how to communicate. He said, communicated to the wise, communicated to the ignorant for thine instruction, communicated to the wise for thine own improvement. So that means regardless of who you talk to, you have to humble yourself and empty your cup. Because you never know when the capacity of the post will change from you being master, servant, magistrate, and subject, teacher, and student. It'll fluctuate. So you have to empty your cup. Because even if I'm telling you something that you already know, and you consider yourself to be wise, it's for what? Thine own improvement. Islam. But then it goes on by saying that the fool is obstinate and doubteth not. He knoweth all things but his own ignorance. So that means he wants to consider himself to be immutable, but it's not with not checking yourself and what is it that you're studying, and what is it that you're forming yourself to be immutable with, that you find yourself at a debacle, that you find yourself that you don't quite know what you think you know. That means that you come across a person that knows everything. How many of us have talked to somebody and every other word out of his mouth is, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. I know this. I know this. I know that. Then why are we having this conversation? What happens if you try to fill a cup that's already empty? I mean, that's already full. It's going to overflow. So that means you're losing all of that wisdom. We talked about earlier the insufficiency of knowledge. It goes on by saying, the pride of emptiness is an abomination, and to talk much is foolishness, is the foolishness of folly. Nevertheless, it is the part of wisdom to hear with patience and impertinence, and to pity their absurdity. What does that mean, Sheik? That means that you are still obligated to listen and consider what this person is talking about. Because even from a fool yapping his gums, you can learn something. You can learn their character. Thus you will learn who you are, a part of yourself. You will learn how to engage with that person. How many times have you heard the saying with your elders, if you say something kind of witty to your elders, they say, oh, I forgot who I was talking to. What does that mean? That means that they have to recalibrate and they have to engage with you differently. Because it may be a concept or a conversation that you are not, you're not capable of reasoning with. What our Grand Sheik would often say, are you waiting to speak or are you listening? This is the reason why we struggle with unity. Because as they say, there's too many chiefs and no Indians. Everybody wants to be the top tier. Everybody wants to be God, goddess. Everybody wants to be the master, the magistrate, the subject. I self law and master. Arm, leg, arm, head. But we forget about the body.
Demonstrating happiness.
How can you be happy when there's no one to share in your joy? Are you truly happy if everyone else surrounding you is full of sorrow, but you're the only one that's puffed up in your own conceit? I want to share something with you. How many of us play video games? Nobody plays video games? I play video games. I'm a big geek. I will tell you, I don't have no problem with it. So it was one day I was playing this game, and this was new to me. So I'm trying to learn how to play the game. This guy comes up, he says, "Hey man, can I play with you?" I'm like, "Sure, no problem." This brother beat me in this game at least 5 times. And he can see that I'm struggling. He can clearly see that I'm struggling because it only takes like 2 minutes for me to just lose the game. But he's steadily happy. Let's play again. So you would, instead of you taking time and realizing maybe after the 3rd or 4th time that I've lost and said, brother, let me show you how to play this game. You'd rather trample or win on account of me not knowing how to play. That gave you happiness. Tyrant. But he was happy. But what good is the happiness if I'm not happy? Because we should all be enjoying the game, right? We should all be enjoying in the treasures of Allah. Right? That is happiness. But he goes on by saying, yet not be puffed up in thy own conceit, neither boast of superior understanding. Y'all heard that before, right? The clearest of human knowledge is but blindness and folly. The wise man feeleth his imperfections and is humble. There's nothing wrong with being humble. Because that hubris will get you in trouble. That hubris will allow you to speak without thought. He laboreth in vain for his own approbation, but the fool peepeth in the shadow stream of his own mind, and pleased with the pebbles which he seeth at the bottom, and bringeth them up, and showeth them as pearls. With the applause of his brethren, delighteth himself. What am I saying, Sheik? I'm saying that if you have to go to if you have to pull up pearls and display them as swine, that's one thing. Because people will call you crazy. Or let me reverse that. If you pull up swine and consider it pearls, people will think you crazy. If I come up right here with a big thing of ham hocks and pork, and I say this is good for you, astaghfirullah, I probably won't be coming back again.
No, sir.
But what's even worse is that I come up here with that same thing of ham hocks, and y'all be like, Islamism. Because that's what it's saying. You got some people that'll condone this folly. And it doesn't make the situation better. He boasteth, on instruction 7, he boasteth of the attainments in things that are of no worth. I beat you in that game. I have the favor of the supervisor or the manager. I got that parking space. The instructor or the teacher, I'm in his favor. I can go see him in the office or whatever. What good is that to the society as a whole? What are you doing? Are you using your benefits or your advantage for the benefit of your people? No, because that means that you have to be selfless. And I got to get mine first. Then after that, you can do what you want to do. I just quoted the movie for those who know. Even in the path of wisdom, he toileth after folly, and shame and disappointment are the reward for his labor. In the path of wisdom. That means, I just talked about this before we started up the meeting, where people, they know the truth. And I'm not even saying specifically the Moorish Science Temple of America. They know how to carry themselves in society. But yet and still, they want to be left to wallow in their own ignorance. They want to go down the wrong path just because it's there. They want to see something. And then when they get lost, they want to call out the beacon for help. And then the next question, the question that they ask is, I don't understand. You understood. You just didn't want to comprehend. Instruction 9, but the wise man cultivates his mind with knowledge. What does it mean to cultivate? Sister just talked about tilling that soil. Talked about being able to dig deep and to pull up under the rocks and to find the treasures. To turn over the soil. To rotate it. To make sure that it is primed for the seed can grow. Because with the knowledge, the wisdom comes in when you can apply it. So you have to cultivate your mind. You have to groom your mind to know how to utilize the knowledge that you've been given. That's why he says he's the wise man. He wouldn't be wise unless he was able to cultivate what he knew. If he wasn't able to demonstrate what he knew or what he knows. The improvement of the arts is his delight, and the unity to the public crowneth with honor. Nevertheless, the attainment of virtue he accounteth as the highest learning. And the science of what?
Happiness.
is the study of his life. Islam?
Islam.
The attainment of virtue. Right? The highest principles known to man: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We talking about being masters. Before we master anything beyond love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, we have to master love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Before we master that, we have to master love. But I digress. Chapter 26, instructions of unity. The only way we can unite is if we empty our cups, is if we sit down with each other, if we reason with each other. What can you learn? We just talked about relationships. So I should be approaching you, sister, and saying, okay, what can I learn with this sister? Just because I'm up here on the rostrum doesn't mean that I can't learn from you. If I'm engaging with this brother, I should be wanting to know what is it that I can learn from him, and vice versa. So when we separate into the world, we remember the relationship that bindeth you to love. And what's this word?
Unity.
That don't sound like y'all knew this word. What is this word again?
Unity.
Unity. We almost done, family. I have a couple more things about unity I want to discuss before I yield the floor. I want to talk one more thing about this inconsistency or this inconstancy that we have in society, and how it prohibits, or how it removes us from unity, how it deters our unity. It says the happiness of the inconstant, and I'm actually on chapter 41, verse 23, on instruction 23. It says the happiness of the inconstant is a place built on the surface of sand. The blowing of the wind carrieth away its foundation. What wonder then that it followeth? All right? The happiness of the inconstant. Now, prior to that, and we just so happen to be on the chapter of inconstancy, it says, nature urgeth thee to inconstancy, O man. Therefore guide thyself at all times against it. How do you guard yourself from inconstancy? Say it again, sir. Strong will. All right. But I would also add on to that is that being around others with like minds. Checks and balances. I can't be but so much inconstant if I got you, sister, that's reminding me of who I am, of my responsibilities. We as a society, we as a nation of people, Moorish Americans, should hold ourselves accountable. Just as the sister said, we should not be afraid to hold our own people accountable. But we have cultivated and groomed a society that is very sensitive. Yes, I said it. We are sensitive people. If not, check out Facebook. We have become a society that are just as brash and brolic in front of that keyboard. But when it comes to meeting up in person and engaging with you in the flesh, you curl up like a fetus. You have nothing to say. I would say that it would be good for all of us, at least once, 4 times out of the year. Yeah, 4 times out of the year. It's 4 seasons, right? 4 seasons out of the year, right? Last time I checked my science. Okay, so at least 1 time or 4 times out of that year, just remove yourself from social media. Instead of talking to somebody in front of a screen, meet someone. Meet yourself. Talk to yourself. Develop how to speak in public. When was the last time you said hello to somebody? When was the last time someone said hello to you? We forgot how to say hello. We know how to say bye when we don't want to deal with nobody. But it's an inconsistency that causes us to be weak as a people, as a collective. Right? But then it goes on further in this chapter of inconstancy, and it says, and this is on instruction 31, his name is resolution. He cometh from the utmost part of the earth. He seeth happiness afar off before him. His eye discovereth her temple beyond the limits of the pole. He walketh up to it, he entereth boldly, and he remaineth there forever. Establish thy heart, O man, in which is right, and then know the greatest of human is to be immutable. But in order to be immutable, well, let me rephrase that. You cannot be immutable as an individual. Now, you can be immutable as a group. You can be immutable as a nation. Why do I say that? Because if somebody goes against you, you stand on your principles. If each and every one of us stands on our principles, then no one can infiltrate these walls. No one. Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? I got a couple more things on happiness, and then I will I'll yield the floor. It says in chapter 35, instruction 29. This is another thing. Know thyself and thy Father God Allah. O fear Allah, therefore, all the days of thy life, and walk in the path which he hath opened before thee. Let prudence admonish thee. Let temperance restrain. Let justice guide thy hand. Benevolence warm thy heart. And gratitude to heaven inspire thee with devotion. So shall give thee, what word is this again? Oh, I did point that out. Happiness. Happiness in thy present state, and bring thee the mansions of eternal felicity in the paradise of Allah. This is the true economy of human life.
Islam.
Islam?
Islam.
And when we talk about this fear, we're not talking about being scary. All right? Most Americans are upright, independent, and fearless. We only fear Allah. But what's interesting about that word fear is that when you go back into the etymology, it means to revere. It means to be in awe. It means to respect. It's only when that European psychology is flipped upon it where we get this being scared and afraid. But when we say fear Allah, we're saying to approach Allah with awe and reverence, knowing that He is all wise and comprehensible. Right? Happiness. One more thing that I have. Let me see. I think that actually might be it. I think so. To find true happiness, you must first understand your purpose. You must have a clear conception on what it is you are called to do. And then you have to do it. Because I guarantee you, the conception of what you're called to do doesn't involve you just doing for yourself. It involves you being a friend to humanity, being a servant to humanity. Right? That is the economy. When we talk about the economy, we're talking about the whole. We're talking about the force. We're talking about that concentrated element that enables us to move forward. But again, that individualism, that individualist mentality that we have, we cannot succeed. If everybody approaches a situation as Negro, Black, Colored, and African American with an individualist mind state, then what can get done? Especially if we're not on the same page. One brother has one agenda. This brother has one agenda. This sister has one agenda. This baby, they have an agenda. Everybody has a separate agenda. But what is the collective agenda of a people? What is it that you will not move upon? You should not want to move on the not having your child have the best education. Not being able to, you should not want to see your brother or your sister out here on the streets homeless. You should not want to see your own people right before you get murdered and brutalized. We should not be in a state of helplessness. We should want to be helpful. Islam family? That is how you achieve happiness, knowing that your brother or your sister is just as happy as you are. Are y'all happy? Islam. Y'all feel good?
Yes, sir.
All right, family. All's well?
All well.
All right. What I will be doing is bringing up our Grand Sheik Rashid Ibn up for some final words, and he will lower the meeting. Once again, gratitude for you all coming out this evening. I want to give significant honors to the Rashid Bey family for their presence. I want to give honors to the babies that are in the sacred groves. Islam, little man. We do this for our children. You know, without a doubt, a contradiction, we do this for our children. So even when we think that our children are not listening, they're listening. They're listening subconsciously. They're building the workshop of the mind. So we, as adults, as responsible adults, we have to continue to bring them in the atmosphere that will allow them to cultivate their mind. Islam? All right.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allahu Akbar.
Islam, Sheik Rashid Ibn, author of the Ruth the Moabitess book. This book right here is now available. This is the most dynamic book you're going to find outside of the works of the Prophet Noble Drama that demonstrates the science of Ruth the Moabitess and the importance of nationality. The Prophet Noble Drama asks, it says, what was the nationality of Ruth? The answer was, Ruth was a Moabitess. Inside of this book here, we have 12 chapters breaking down history, etymology, comparative religious studies, international law, nationality, divine creed, the importance of male-female relationships, the importance of the feminine gender, covering the divine feminine, and a host of other topics. We have 9 appendixes outside the 12 chapters, which are supplementary information to support the 12 chapters, and it kind of extends the learning and truth regarding this particular topic, right? Within here as well, you have various different portraits of various different Asiatic and Muslim characters. You have Ruth in here. You have images of Naomi, images of Tamar, the wife of Judah. You have images of Nimrod, King Misha, and a host of others. And we've done this primarily to drive home the fact of how important it is of imagery. We need to see images of ourselves, because foreign ones have taken our forefathers and painted them to look like themselves, but we have to set the record straight. And this is a record that set that record straight. Within inside of each copy of Ruth the Moabitess is a copy of the Divine Constitution and Bylaws from the Prophet Noble Ali, because we have to remind ourselves of the law. So this is a complimentary copy that comes with all copies or ordered copies of Ruth the Moabitess. Don't miss out. The copies are selling fast, and you can obtain a copy of Ruth the Moabitess at www.alhambra19pub.com. That's Alhambra, A-L-H-A-M as in more, B as in boy, RA19, P as in prophet, UB as in boy.com. www.alhambra19pub.com. Our Prophet Noble Drali instructed us that our mission statement is to uplift fallen humanity and to teach those things necessary to make us better citizens. And this book, Ruth the Moabitess, will help us to gain a comprehension of what that truly means. Peace and blessings and honors to all Moabitesses throughout the world. Peace.